and welcome to BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded on an early, I like to call this early Sunday evening. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last Outlaw. So good to have everybody in the house this evening. And like I said when I promoted this, I got three cases with three ending with three verdicts. I've got time today. All right. So let me go ahead and get myself set up here with our first story. Then I can go ahead and do all the take care of the house cleaning, if you will. All right. First of all, so good to have you all here. I got three major cases that I got verdicts and all on, and I'm bringing it to you right here. So in other words, I will be saving these three, the best for last. All right. So again, thank you for joining me. Please make sure to drop that like, share, subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment here in the chat if you like. That's the free way to help me out. If you would like to do this financially, here you go. You can hit me up on PayPal/PayPal me/EKB316, Cash App $EKB316, or Venmo at EB the Last Outlaw. Nothing is obligated, but it's always appreciated. All right. If you're in the chat, you want to come on up here, bounce your theories and whatever off of me. Come on, I'll be more than happy to have you. Click the link. Especially if you're on Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, easiest ways to get on. If you're for everybody in chat, all your comments, statements, views, and all that's all considered your opinion. It's not evidence until we say that something you said otherwise. Long story short, here I'm just looking for respect. Okay, no, none of the other BS. You don't like you don't like what somebody's got to say. You can always block them in the chat. Find the three dots by their name, click block, and you're good to go. Alright. The trigger warning will go up when necessary. I'll also sound off when necessary. Alright, and as you can see scrolling across the screen is the copyright disclaimer. I'll have that. I got that going right now. Now, and all our stories, all our verdicts and everything is coming from the original True Crime Obsession, Court TV, your front row seat to justice. And I'll let you know how to get in contact with me at the very end of this broadcast. So, if you're ready, just need to make a little adjustment here. Turmoil. There we go. And there you go. That's the scrolling marquee I wanted to give you right there. This week it's True Crime Turmoil, from tragedy to truth, and we are going to get that set up and going right now. Alright, first story of the day. The trial of Daniel Penny is already underway, charged in the New York subway chokehold death. Jury selection is set to begin was set to begin on last week in the criminal trial of a former U.S. Marine Corps veteran charged with manslaughter for placing a man in a deadly chokehold on a New York City subway train last year. 25-year-old Daniel Penny is accused of recklessly causing the death of 30-year-old former street performer Jordan Neely, who witnesses say was acting erratically on the train on May 1st, 2023. The Manhattan court proceedings, which are expected to last 6 weeks, will place a spotlight back on a case that sparked debate and division locally and across the country. Protesters took to the streets to demand authorities arrest Penny, who is white, Neely was black, while others rallied in support outside of the courthouse once he was charged. Daniel Penny served 4 years in the Marines before being discharged in 2021. He's been free on a $100,000 bond, faces 15 years in prison if convicted of second-degree manslaughter, and up to 4 years if convicted of criminally negligent homicide. Witnesses to the incident said Neely, who had struggled from drug addiction, mental illness, and homelessness, had been shouting and demanding money when Penny approached him. Penny pinned Neely to the ground with the help of 2 other passengers and placed him in a chokehold for more than 3 minutes until Neely's body went limp. The medical examiner's office ruled the death a homicide caused by compression of the neck. Penny's lawyers have argued that the Long Island native didn't intend to kill Neely, just hold him down long enough for police to arrive. Penny has claimed Neely shouted, "I'm gonna kill you," and that he was ready to die or go to jail for life. Penny's attorney, Stephen Razor, said the defense plans to offer up potential causes for Neely's death, including high levels of the synthetic cannabinoid known as K2 found in his body. They'll also argue that videos shared widely on social media proves Penny was not applying pressure consistently enough to render Neely unconscious, much less kill him. Prosecutors in their court filings have argued that Penny's actions were reckless and negligent even if he didn't intend to kill Neely. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office declined to comment ahead of the trial. Neely's uncle Christopher Neely said he and other family members have been anticipating this moment. Justice for Jordan is all we think about. That's what he told the Associated Press the week before last. Now, guys, everybody knows me knows I'm a wrestling fan. I'm an MMA fan. If you're gonna take somebody down, it's one thing. You're gonna take them down in a chokehold. You're gonna take them down in a chokehold, a rear naked choke, as it's called in mixed martial arts, or a sleeper hold in professional wrestling. You know, if you put the right amount of pressure on somebody, the blood flow goes straight to the brain, and that guy's gonna fall asleep. So what happens when you do it the wrong way? The guy you locked up in that hold is gonna die. So while it may not matter whether he meant to kill the guy or not, the bottom line is that's exactly what happened. He put him in that chokehold wrong, and he did it to the point where the guy ended up losing his life. Period. Point blank. We'll see how this turns out for Daniel Penny as his trial is underway. All right, next up. Court documents detail the torture of Elijah View as his mother and caretaker face more charges. A Wisconsin mother and her boyfriend are facing additional charges after the body of 3-year-old Elijah View was found last month. On last Friday, not this past Friday, but last Friday, Katrina Bauer was granted a $400,000 cash bond, and Jesse Vang granted a $500,000 cash bond at their first hearing since the new charges were announced. They're due back in court tomorrow. Or no, they're due back in court. They were due back in court last Monday for an initial appearance. Bauer is now facing charges of chronic neglect of a child resulting in death, neglecting a child, and resisting or obstructing an officer. Vang is charged with the physical abuse of a child, repeated acts causing death, hiding a corpse, and resisting or obstructing an officer. That's according to court documents obtained by Scripps News Green Bay. For a little bit more, I'm going to take you right now to Julie Grant with more on this story.
As the mother of 3-year-old Elijah Vu, remember him missing for months, her boyfriend, she and her boyfriend are now facing charges in connection to little Elijah's death. Elijah reported missing back in February. You'll recall his remains found just last month, 3 miles from the home where he lived. Katrina Bauer and Jesse Vang are expected to be back in court today to have their initial appearance on these new charges. Now, Bauer is charged with chronic child neglect with the consequence of death and child neglect and obstruction of justice. Jesse Vang is charged with physical abuse of a child causing death, hiding a corpse, and obstructing an officer. The criminal complaint includes testimony from a child abuse expert who says that evidence shows that Vu was tortured during his short life. Court TV is going to be following this case closely as Katrina Bauer and Jesse Vang have now been charged in connection with Elijah Vu's death and disappearance. This is huge news this morning. We're going to be following as the two are expected to be in court today. We're working to get more information on that. We're going to bring you all the very latest details as they come in, as little Elijah certainly deserves justice.
More on that, and I pray that little Elijah gets the justice that he is so overdue. His mother and her boyfriend absolutely deserve every bit of the punishment they have coming for the life of Elijah Vu that was so wrongly and needlessly taken. Next up, a wife accused of killing a Utah guardsman makes her first appearance in court. The Utah woman accused of murdering her husband while he slept was ordered not to have any contact with her children during her first court appearance on this past Monday. Jennifer Gledhill appeared in court remotely from jail following her October 2nd arrest, where she faces murder and obstruction of justice charges in the death of Matthew Johnson. During the hearing, the judge ruled on the state's request for a pretrial protective order prohibiting Gledhill from having any contact with her 3 children, ages 11, 7, and 5. Gledhill's attorney, argued that the state was using a heavy-handed tactic to try and put undue pressure on Gledhill and believed the well-being of the children should be factored into the decision. I can't imagine what it's like to say that she can't see the children and, in effect, tell the children that they can't see mom either, the attorney said. They're not named victims in the case. I don't see a basis for having a protective order that prevents them from having contact with their mother in any form or fashion. Speaking for the state, attorney Chantel Argyle asked the judge to look at Gledhill's arrest documents that led to her being taken into custody. We have concerns where we have had similar case scenarios where the minor children have later been attacked or murdered by the defendant as part of the ongoing process, she said, and whether it's a mental health issue by the defendant or just simply a means to prevent the prosecution of the matter. And that's the reason that there's a blanket allegation as to the safety of the protected parties, because that is something that we have seen. In the end, the judge issued a temporary protective order that will remain in effect until it is argued in front of a different judge at a later date. Johnson, a member of the Utah National Guard, was reported missing on September 23rd after he failed to show up to work at his base. Gledhill allegedly told a man that she was having an extramarital affair. With that, she had shot her husband in the head as he was sleeping. She then claimed to have carried the body and buried it in a shallow grave. Johnson's body has yet to be found. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. We still don't know for sure how she was able to pull all that off, but being that this is BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded, I'm gonna have some kind of an update, right? I gotta have some kind of an update, right? So let's see. Do I have that update? I should. Well, I do. I didn't get this update until this past Friday. So this is the update we're getting on that. The parents of the woman accused of killing her husband, they were arrested. The parents of Jennifer Gledhill, the Cottonwood Heights woman accused of killing her husband as he slept, have been arrested for allegedly helping their daughter cover up the murder. Can you say aiding and abetting? Rosalie and Thomas Gledhill both face multiple first-degree felony charges of obstruction of justice in connection to the death of Matthew Johnson. Gledhill's parents are accused of helping Jennifer clean up the home in which she allegedly shot Johnson in the head on either September 21st or 22nd. Jennifer Gledhill was arrested on October 2nd after a man with whom she was having an affair told police she had admitted to killing Johnson. Johnson, a member of the Utah National Guard, was reported missing on September 23rd after he failed to show up to work at his base. The informant told police that Gledhill said she had shot her husband in the head as he was sleeping. She then claimed to have taken the body and buried it in a shallow grave. A neighbor told police they saw Gledhill's parents cleaning up the home on September 24th until late evening. Although Rosalie claimed they had only been there an hour, Gledhill's mother said she had purchased a mattress from Amazon at her daughter's request. An ongoing investigation into Johnson's death found the new mattress in the Cottonwood Heights home, where he was believed to be shot. Police have yet to find the mattress that was previously in the home of or Johnson's body. According to the arrest documents, neither of Gledhill's parents has cooperated with the police investigation or in locating the body. When detectives served a search warrant on Gledhill's parents' home, they found a plastic tote that contained a Glock 19X gun box wrapped in a child's onesie. The district attorney's office said the gun container matched the gun model Gledhill had shown to the man who informed the police. Jennifer Gledhill made her first appearance in court and was ordered not to have any contact with her 3 children. So, wow. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough that she did it. Oh, who we got here? Buffalo Mountain Girl, how you doing? Welcome to BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. So glad to have you here. So, like I said, Jennifer Gledhill. It wasn't enough that allegedly she shot and killed her husband, but now her parents are in that mix too, and they're arrested now for aiding and abetting, pretty much. Well, when I get more information on this, I'll be sure to bring it to you. But even still, that is just enough. That's enough to say, this thing doesn't even have to go to court, or I already got her found guilty. All right, it's time once again for another edition of Did He Do It? Or maybe I should retitle it, Did He Did It? A new lawsuit accuses music mogul Sean Diddy Combs of drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl at a house party in 2000 in the presence of 2 other celebrities, one of whom the lawsuit accuses of raping her as well. The lawsuit is the latest to accuse Combs of using his celebrity status and the resources of his business empire to lure unsuspecting men, women, and minors to lavish parties or drug-fueled hangouts where Combs and others allegedly assaulted them. Combs has been allowed for years to conduct himself in this manner without any consequences. He believes he is above the law. He is not, the lawsuit states. Texas-based attorney Tony Busby said in September that his firm intends to file a lawsuit on behalf of 120 people from different backgrounds accusing Combs of sexual abuse and advertise a hotline for more accusers to call. Through his representatives, Combs said he emphatically and categorically denies as false and defamatory any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors. His legal team said they would not comment on each allegation, noting that the truth will prevail in court. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and set this back up with the copyright disclaimer, and I'm going to take you right back to Julie Grant as she lets us know how this case is trending in true crime.
The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways.
How are you all feeling right now? Anything you want to say?
As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers.
He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent. and we're going to fight this case with all of our might. Until we don't have to fight, we won't.
Sean Diddy Combs back in what's trending in true crime as 7 new lawsuits have been filed against the music mogul. One of them alleges that he drugged and raped a girl who was 13 at the time. That lawsuit alleges that other people were present and did nothing to stop it, that some even participated in the acts. Now, Jane Doe alleges that she was sexually assaulted by Combs and another male celebrity, claims they both raped her back in the year 2000 while a female celebrity was in the room watching along. This happened after the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards. Now, according to this latest complaint, Combs and his associates would tell victims, quote, "This is what it takes to be famous. What are you willing to do to become a star?" and perform this sexual act or else in exchange for sex. Our question this morning that everybody's talking about, do we think the male and the female celebrity in this suit will be revealed? And my question, why didn't the plaintiff's lawyer just say their names in the suit in the first place? Let's bring in our power panel and talk about it. We've got Beauty and Brains today, Ladies' Day this Tuesday. I want to welcome in former homicide prosecutor and the director of prosecution projects at Florida International University, Melba Pearson. Domestic violence expert, former law enforcement officer, and the host of the Strong Enough podcast, Claudia King. And entertainment commentator, Holland Reed. Great to have you all on the show today. I know you have all got a lot to say, so let's go. Holland Reed, would you start us off? Your thoughts, please.
My thoughts, Julie, are shots have been fired. This was absolutely an intentional use of words, the verbiage of celebrity A and celebrity B, and making it a woman and a man is putting Hollywood and the music industry and all celebrities on notice. I don't know why, of course, they're not revealing these names. There's probably the bigger picture in regard to the lawsuit, and then any criminal activity or criminal whatever they're working out behind closed doors, right? This is your wheelhouse. But as far as the entertainment side of this, I want to know who was standing there watching a 13-year-old incapacitated being raped. What celebrity are we celebrating right now? Was female celebrity or male celebrity that participated in this? This is where the bigger picture comes in, where you didn't do this alone. It took a tribe of people, disgusting people, that allowed this to go on for decades. And that is what I feel like is happening. Those were shots fired. That was a warning shot from this attorney on behalf of this woman who was 13 at the time. And it's only going to go deeper.
Holland, preach. I loved everything you just said. Preach, my friend. You're absolutely right. And how you said intentionality here, right? In this language, celebrity A, celebrity B. Sounds like they may be a couple. Don't know, but they sure worded it in a way that I walked away drawing that inference. Melba Pearson, my friend, you're nodding. Our lawyer on the panel this morning, what were you thinking about how that other lawyer worded that?
So I co-sign everything that Holland said because of the fact that I think there's a parallel criminal investigation going on. Because if you're talking about that assault of a child, statute of limitations are very different when it comes to that, right? So there might be some federal investigation going on with regards to that to see if there's any options. Also trying to figure out if there's other child victims that could be maybe grouped together in one indictment. So that could be percolating there. But I came away with the same impression when I read the pleadings. This is a couple. And this is a woman who stood there and encouraged her partner to assault and defile a child. So the level of depravity here is another level, and like that we've just never experienced. And I'm kind of terrified of who that could be, because I'm thinking of a few celebrity couples that are in my playlist and in a lot of our playlists that could fit the bill and that were very close friends with Diddy. So this is the beginning. This, as Cat Williams said at the top of this year, 2024 is going to be the year of truth, and all lies will be revealed. A whole lot of people in Hollywood are not sleeping well tonight. That is for sure.
So right. You're so right, Melba. And he called it. He really did. He called it. Now here we are. Look at this. And I love what you said about how there's probably a criminal investigation going on right now. Perfect thing. I wanted to bring Claudia King in on this morning. Claudia, talk to us here. Your reactions to this, and then also, what do you think may be happening that the greater public may be unaware of in terms of finding out if any other people were involved in any of these horrific things being alleged with Diddy?
Well, I want to start by agreeing with Melba that I think we all have a few names in mind, and it's horrifying to think that, you know, anybody would defile a child, but it's even worse to think that a woman would stand by and watch it. So as far as what could be going on behind the scenes right now are going to be things like speaking to the victim, getting the entire story, getting the timeline. It was a really long time ago, but we're going to talk to potential outcry witnesses. You know, is there anybody that this person reported to? They're going to want to talk to them. If the suspects will speak to them, they're going to speak to them. And they could, maybe before the suit came out, they could have gone to them and said, hey, we're looking for witnesses. We heard this terrible thing happen. You might have been there and seen something very important. Now that the suit's come out, that option is kind of gone. And whoever that couple or potential couple is probably going to be very tight-lipped. But they're definitely digging deep, talking to everybody that they can find that could have been there at the time, outcry witnesses, any potential evidence. Cell phones weren't as big back then, but they're going to be looking at every place, every nook and cranny that they can.
And I love what you said, outcry witnesses. For anybody who may be unfamiliar, so someone who a victim goes to immediately and might share their experience, or even someone, if they don't share, might have just observed them looking upset. Here, Claudia, as you're talking, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I keep thinking of this. This was a child at the time, 13. Now she's 37. This child's father picked her up. She said once she was able to go through that party, I mean, it ran out of the room, you know, naked, essentially, got dressed outside, out of the building, and then called her dad to pick her up. You made me think, Claudia, you know, there may be so many people that have so much information that's being gathered right now, and we haven't even scratched that surface. So let's dig into something here that this is disturbing, but this very well may be this woman's reality, this woman who was 13 who claims this happened. We've extracted portions of the complaint. It says that Combs aggressively approached her with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." The lawsuit says that he then threw her toward that male celebrity who's unidentified, called Celebrity A, who's alleged to have taken off her clothing. The plaintiff was then held down by that celebrity, whoever it is, Celebrity A, who allegedly vaginally raped her while Combs and that female celebrity watched. Then the suit says that after that unidentified male was finished, Combs then vaginally raped that 13-year-old as well, while Celebrity A, the man, and Celebrity B, the woman, watched. Lawsuit says Combs attempted to force the plaintiff to perform oral sex on him after that, but she resisted by hitting him in the neck, and it stopped. And after that was when, as I noted, she proceeded to leave. And she noted that she became woozy after taking a drink. You know, that she was given a drink in this party by someone, and then it may have been what caused her to lose her wits and feel the way she felt. She went to a bedroom to lie down because of the dizziness. So that was how she made it to a bedroom in the first place, according to the suit. There's so much here. What shocks you the most? What shocks you the most about all of this? Let's bring back in our power panel and ask them that question. Holland, back to you. What shocks you the most about what's alleged here?
You know, I can't hide my emotions over my face, Julie. It's so disturbing, so many levels. I just want to say this. I've been to these after parties for the VMAs. There are a plethora of the most highest powered celebrities I mean, athletes, politicians, actors, producers. I cannot imagine being a 13-year-old girl standing in a room saying no to any of these people, whether it was my aspiration to be in entertainment or just being so enamored by the entertainment industry. But to stand in a room with three powerful celebrities, because they said celebrity A, they didn't say no name A, they didn't say witness A, they said celebrity A and B, and Puffy as a 13-year-old girl, and literally being raped. I cannot fathom looking up at my television 20 years later and seeing those celebrities be mothers and fathers and influential, have all these businesses and thriving while I had this experience. That is the most disturbing part of all of this. I'm so sorry. You know I'm passionate about this.
No,
Julie.
don't be sorry. Keep going, my friend. I am here for everything you're saying. We all are. We all are, Holland. Yes.
It's just unfathomable. And I was at these parties as a grown woman, intimidated. I stood next to Leonardo DiCaprio and couldn't speak in the bathroom line at an after party for the VMAs. So I know what that feeling is like. So to be 13 and have all your facilities, your bodily functions removed, your control, whatever you want to call it, my words are not coming to me. I cannot imagine. And then having to call your father and running out naked. So that means other people saw this. Other people, all these celebrities. We know that he was the creme de la creme during this time. And all of those people witnessed it. That is the most disturbing part. So whoever celebrity A and celebrity B is, let's go, man. Let's go. I need names. I need names.
Yes, you are so right, Holland. Yes, we all, right? You know, and I can't get past why. The only thing I can think of is why that plaintiff's lawyer didn't name them is if he's trying to go to them and strike up some kind of a settlement or something privately. That's the only thing I can think of. It's frustrating to me. You know, you're going to make these allegations, make them in whole, make them. If it happened, then say it. Say the truth. Claudia King, tell me, when we think about what this child went through, allegedly, it was noted in the suit that this has affected her for the rest of her life. You know, this was a horrific night, but it follows her. Would you please speak to this? As someone, you devoted so much of your life to being an advocate for sex assault victims. You are a survivor of sex assault, and thank goodness you talk about it. You help other people understand how horrific it can be, but that you can come back from this. What is it like when an experience like this happens and then you have to carry on with everything normal in your life?
Well, she went for so many years probably feeling like nobody would believe her. And that's the worst part of it. She feels probably dejected, low self-esteem, low confidence. So it's great that she's finding her voice now. And I hope that this will help her heal.
Yeah, most definitely. Our hearts go out to everyone who has been victimized, if they have, you know, we have a lot of suits outstanding, hanging in the balance. The only one we know definitively, you know, was the Cassie suit. That one was settled. We saw the video, and we're gonna have to leave this here for now. But a great discussion with you all. Thank you, Holland Reed, Claudia King, and Melba Pearson, for all of your insight.
who's plenty, that there is more to go around. There is others that may be involved in it, and I want to know more. So when we get more information, we'll get it to you. But until then, tune in next time for another edition of Did He Do It? Next up, a former deputy has been accused of murdering his lieutenant wife and staging a suicide. A former sergeant in a Florida sheriff's office is behind bars and charged with killing his wife, a lieutenant, and trying to cover up the murder as a suicide. 49-year-old Anthony Shea is charged with first-degree murder of his wife, Eloida Ellie Shea, age 39, who was found dead from a single gunshot wound in the family's home on October 14th. Days later, police determined that what Anthony had reported to be a suicide was actually a homicide and arrested him. Ellie worked at the Orange County Sheriff's Office since 2011, where she had reached the rank of lieutenant. Anthony had also worked for the Sheriff's Office as a sergeant, but resigned earlier this year following an internal affairs investigation. The investigation centered around an intimate relationship Anthony had while on duty. That's according to an arrest affidavit reviewed by Court TV. Anthony described his wife to officers who responded to the scene as depressed and overwhelmed after learning about his affair, and said the two had been arguing. Wanting to give her space, Anthony said he took their two daughters to a Publix grocery store to buy Brussels sprouts. Officers noted in their arrest report, Anthony Shea attempts to control the crime and direct deputies to evidence which will confirm his alibi. Anthony Shea has blood on his forearms and hands and washes them in the kitchen sink. When detectives reviewed cell phone records, they said the evidence didn't align with Anthony's story. Investigators said the records show Anthony was likely using Ellie's phone to send messages to himself, and at one point inadvertently began an audio recording with her phone. That audio recording did include the gunshot, but in their arrest warrant, police said Anthony could be heard coming into the bedroom and remaining in the room for approximately 50 seconds before calling 911. While the internal affairs investigation is recent and prompted Anthony's resignation this summer, previous court filings indicate problems in the Shea marriage dating back more than 10 years. Ellie asked the court for protection from her husband, according to a 2012 court filing found by WFTV. In that filing, which says the couple has been married for 17 or 18 years and shares 5 children, Ellie said that Anthony threatened to have 10 men rape her, quote unquote. The arrest warrant included a note that a review of Ellie's cell phone showed she had done an internet search for "I'm a cop and my husband sexually assaulted me," quote unquote. During an interview with police, Anthony told detectives that he and his wife had intercourse the night before her death. Anthony is being held without bond at the Orange County Jail, and he is next due in court for a pre-trial detention hearing. That hearing has already heard on this past Friday. More information as it comes. Next up, former Abercrombie and Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries is arrested on sex trafficking charges. But before I jump on that, let me see if nothing out of no new messages in chat yet, which is okay. Ex-Abercrombie and Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries arrested on sex trafficking charges. Let's go right to Court TV for more on this story.
The former CEO of clothing retailer Abercrombie & Fitch is behind bars, accused of luring men into drug-laced, outlandish, and coercive sex parties he held around the world. Mike Jeffries is accused of dangling the promise of modeling for the retailer's ads. Also under arrest, Jeffries' romantic partner and then a third man as well. The trio is accused of using Jeffries' status and wealth to fulfill the couple's sexual desires in what investigators say amounted to an international sex trafficking and prostitution business. The three are charged with sex trafficking and interstate prostitution. We'll keep you updated on that story for sure.
And when they update, you know I'm gonna update. In the meantime, as we just heard, Jeffries' partner Matthew Smith and their employee James Jacobson operated an international sex trafficking and prostitution business from 2008 to 2015, using Jeffries' status, wealth, and a web of household staffers to fulfill the couple's sexual desires and keep it all secret, according to an indictment unsealed in federal court in Brooklyn. As I've stated, when we get more updates on this story, you'll get it right here at BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. It's crazy. Speaking of crazy, Lori Vallow won't be in court following competency evaluation request. Yeah, her story is nowhere near over yet. Lori Vallow will not be in court this week or last week in this case, after her defense attorney said she is not mentally fit to stand trial in Arizona. The judge granted her defense team's Rule 11 motion for a competency evaluation for Vallow. This means 2 mental health experts will evaluate her. Vallow was convicted in Idaho of killing her 2 children, but her mental competency caused pauses in that case as well. The so-called doomsday cult mom is serving life in prison after being convicted of conspiracy and murder for the deaths of her 2 youngest children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, as well as her husband Chad Daybell's first wife, Tammy Daybell. Chad Daybell was sentenced to death for the murders of his first wife, Tammy, and Lori's youngest children. He is a self-published author, and prosecutors have described him as the leader of a doomsday cult. Now she's in Arizona, indicted for conspiring to kill her 4th husband, Charles Vallow. She was also indicted for allegedly conspiring to kill her niece's former husband, Brandon Boudreaux. Just when you think that the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell drama was over and done with, not even close. Now we're getting the word that Lori Daybell is not mentally competent to stand trial. When will she be? Stay tuned. We'll get when the information comes in. We'll find that out soon enough. All right. Time to sound the alarm. Yep, that's the trigger warning, and which means if I'm trying to protect your mental health. So as you see scroll across the screens, all the stories you see in here and the images accompanying them may be triggering to your mental health. Viewer discretion is strongly advised in this one. All right, here we go. All right, the daughter of a dismembered woman files emergency protective order. 2 days after their mother was allegedly killed and dismembered, the sister of a woman accused in the case filed an emergency petition for a protective order against their brother. Toralina Fields is charged with murder, abuse of a corpse, and multiple other charges in connection with the October 9th death of her mother, Trudy Fields. Police said that they were called to the home Torlina shared with her mother, Trudy Fields, in Robertson County after someone who was there to work on the property told them Trudy didn't answer the door, then saw what he thought was a dismembered body lying in the grass near a blood-stained mattress. Torlina Fields' sister, Telby Fields, filed a petition for an emergency protection order against their brother Truett Fields on October 11th, according to court records. My mother was butchered by my sister under his advisement, Telby Fields wrote in the petition. The petition alleges that Truett Fields had threatened the lives of both Trudy and Telby, as well as the whole entire family. Truett Fields threatened to kill Telby Fields to claim his birthright as the firstborn, according to the petition. At the bottom of the petition, Telby Fields wrote, "When my body is found, Truett Fields murdered me." The emergency protective order was granted, ordering Truett Fields not to go near Telby Fields and barring him from their mother's funeral, according to court records. A hearing in the case is scheduled for later this month. Scripps News Lexington was unable to reach Truett Fields for comment. And here I was thinking that this story couldn't get any more bizarre. But, surprise, surprise. More information when it comes, and I am kind of, I kind of am, and then at the same time, I'm kind of not looking forward to seeing Torlina Fields go on trial for killing and dismembering her own mother. All right, I'm gonna go right on to Carly Gregg's appeal, which was denied. The judge says trial by ambush must remain in the grave. Trial by ambush? A judge denied convicted teen murderer Carly Gregg's motion for a new trial based on new evidence, arguing that the information could have been found had her attorneys exercised reasonable diligence. 15-year-old Carly Gregg was sentenced to life in prison without parole after a jury found her guilty of murdering her mother and trying to kill her stepfather when she was 14. At trial, Gregg's offense conceded that she had fired shots, but argued that she suffered from mental illness and was legally insane at the time of the crime. Right. A motion filed shortly after her conviction asked for Judge Dewey Arthur to grant her a new trial or set the verdict and sentence aside entirely. The motion cited new evidence, including an interview with Gregg's biological father with a local television station that could have led to a different result at trial. Judge Arthur denied the motion, saying he did not see evidence that her father's statements would have led to a different verdict and that the defense could have found the interviews sooner had it exercised reasonable diligence. At trial, Gregg was not allowed to call her maternal grandmother and a maternal uncle due to a previous ruling, which the defense Thank you, Echo. Which the defense referred to as radical sanctions in its motion. Judge Arthur clarified his reasoning behind barring the witnesses, explaining that after repeated requests for the discovery, the defense refused to reveal the substance of the witnesses' testimony. Quote, "The court found and believed that most, if not all, of the reciprocal discovery was not promptly turned over to obtain a tactical advantage. However, letting a defendant tell the court that it may prejudice her case before the jury to provide the substance of witness testimony is a bridge too far. Trial by ambush must remain in the grave." End quote. Judge Arthur noted that he did not allow Greg's expert witness to testify at trial, even though they were not hired until after the discovery deadline had passed. Greg has filed a notice of appeal for her case. Now, I know I've said this before when the verdict was reached, but I'm going to say it once again. Carly Gregg should have taken the deal. Before her trial started, Carly Gregg was offered a deal that would put her behind bars for 40 years, meaning she would have been out of prison by the time she was 55. She decided to roll the dice, if you will. She decided to roll the dice, and man, what's the best way to describe this? I'll say it this way: the end result came up snake eyes for Carly Greggs. 15 years of age, she throws her entire life away. Now she's going to spend the rest of her life in prison for shooting and killing her mother, and attempting to attempting to kill her stepfather. Appeal all you want, Carly. It's not going to help. Now here's another one. Here's another case of a mom killing her kids, and now she's about to face justice. Tiffany Lucas, Kentucky mother, pleads guilty to fatally shooting her two sons. Tiffany Lucas entered guilty pleas to murder charges in Bullitt County Court, according to news outlets. She had previously entered a not guilty plea by reason of insanity and was scheduled to stand trial in December before changing her plea. Sentencing is scheduled for November 22nd, and Judge Rodney Burris said that each charge carries a 20 to 50 year sentence or a life sentence. Deputies responding to a report of a shooting in Shepherdsville, Kentucky in November 2023 found the children ages 6 and 9 with gunshot wounds, according to authorities. The children were taken to a hospital in Louisville where they died. A witness at the scene identified Lucas as the shooter, and a gun was found inside the same room as the children. That's according to the arrest citation. So November 22nd, Tiffany Lucas will be sentenced to either 25 to 50 years or life behind bars for the murders of both of her children. I will be giving her last rites before that date comes. Or should I? You guys tell me. Drop me a comment in the drop me a comment here in the chat or in the community section. Let me know if Tiffany Lucas, I should read her last rites then. Next up, the 3 Georgia guys who killed Ahmaud Arbery in court are arguing for a new trial. Why? I don't know. Here we go. 3 white men serving life in prison for murder after chasing and killing Ahmaud Arbery in 2020 are returning to court to ask a judge for a new trial. Attorneys for Greg McMichael, his son Travis McMichael, and their former neighbor William Roddy Bryant are making a range of arguments for a new trial, from a tainted jury to ineffective counsel for one of the men. Superior Court Judge Timothy Walmsley, who was the judge in their 2021 murder trial and handed down their sentences, has set aside up to 2 days to hear legal motions. The McMichaels armed themselves with guns and jumped in a pickup truck to chase Arbery, a 25-year-old black man, after they saw him run past their house on February 23, 2020, in a subdivision outside the port city of Brunswick. Brian joined the pursuit in his own truck and recorded cell phone video of Travis McMichael firing shotgun blasts at close range into Arbery, who fell fatally wounded in the street. No arrests were made in Arbery's killing for more than 2 months until Brian's cell phone video leaked online and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, took over the case from police. Arbery's death became part of a broader reckoning on racial injustice in the criminal legal system, along with the police killings of George Floyd in Minneapolis and Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. Defense attorneys argued that the Georgia trial that the armed pursuit was justified because the McMichaels and Brian suspected Arbery was a thief and sought to detain him for police. Travis McMichael testified that he opened fire in self-defense when Arbery attacked with his fists. Police found no evidence Arbery had stolen anything or committed other crimes in the neighborhood. An attorney for Travis McMichael, Pete Donaldson, said in a legal filing that he plans to present evidence that the jury's verdict was tainted by outside influences and extraneous prejudicial information. The information came to light in a private investigator's recorded interviews with 3 jurors in 2022, Donaldson wrote, giving no other details. Greg McMichael's lawyer, Jerry Chappell, said he was supporting Donaldson's effort to question the verdict's fairness. Brian's lawyer, Rodney Zell, argued in a written motion that Brian's trial attorney was ineffective. He noted that Brian, on his previous lawyer's advice, had agreed to be interviewed with the GBI. Zell said Brian was ill-prepared to speak with investigators and managed to incriminate himself. Zell also wrote that the judge had wrongly prohibited defense attorneys from presenting trial evidence of prior bad acts by Arbery. Defense attorneys had sought to use evidence of Arbery's past run-ins with law enforcement, including 2 arrests as well as mental health records, to argue that the McMichaels rightly feared that he might be dangerous. Walmsley ruled before the trial that such evidence related to Arbery's character was irrelevant to the murder case because none of the defendants knew him prior to the deadly chase. Seeking a new trial marks the first step by the 3 defendants in challenging their murder convictions. Walmsley sentenced both McMichaels to life in prison without parole, while giving Brian a chance to parole. The men were also convicted of federal hate crimes in U.S. District Court after a separate trial in February 2022. The jury concluded the trio targeted Arbery because he was black. Prosecutors presented 24 social media posts and text messages, as well as witness testimony that showed all 3 men used racist slurs or otherwise disparaged black people. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals had heard arguments in March from attorneys asking the court to overturn the hate crimes verdict. A decision on the federal appeals is still pending. So again, guys, you tell me, should the McMichaels and Brian get another trial, or are they right where they belong? You tell me, and when we get this updated, you'll get the news from here first. Next up, cell phone video appeared to show multiple officers punching Jackson Hopper, who was accused of killing Ellie Young during his arrest. The investigation is underway in the arrest of a man accused of killing Ellie Young. A Tennessee man is behind bars after he allegedly murdered his girlfriend and led police on a multi-county chase, according to court documents. 26-year-old Jackson Hopper is charged with first-degree murder in the death of 22-year-old Ellie Young, who was fatally shot on October 19th in Memphis. Witnesses told authorities a man later identified as Hopper parked behind Young as she sat in her Jeep Wrangler and fired 2 shots into the vehicle. Young exited her vehicle and the suspect allegedly fired 1 more shot as she lay on the ground before fleeing the scene in a white Honda Civic. Oh, let's see. Where was I at? I was looking for other information real quick. Let's see. What is it? Man later identified as Hopper. Affidavit states Young's family members identified Hopper as the victim's ex-boyfriend. Hopper was taken into custody after a police pursuit ended in a crash. Since his arrest, authorities have announced they are conducting an internal affairs investigation after cell phone video appeared to show multiple officers punching Hopper. Last week, Hopper pled not guilty when prosecutors asked for no bond. And a GoFundMe campaign states that Young was a medical student at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center. She was reportedly killed after volunteering at an annual breast cancer awareness walk. On the one side, if those charges stick, then Hopper deserves to go to trial, stand before a jury of his peers, and plead his case. If the charges stick, the jury will find him guilty and he will do time for murder. That's on the one side. On the other side, arresting a man is one thing, especially if he's accused of murder. But if you're gonna do it the right way. There's no sense it's just beating a guy down. I mean, let me pull this up real quick and give you all a good look at alright, there's that. I'm gonna set that up like so. I mean, look at that. Does that make any kind of sense to you guys? It surely doesn't to me. Anyway, more updates on this one as it comes in. Next up, the Brad Simpson case. He and his associate are facing new charges after his wife Suzanne's disappearance. All right. Let me take you right to Court TV for more information on this.
The search for missing Texas mom and realtor Suzanne Simpson is entering week number 3. Her husband's business partner is now facing some charges connected to Suzanne's disappearance. Her husband Brad and his business partner James Cotter, both now charged with tampering with evidence. Investigators believe that Cotter helped Brad Simpson hide a weapon possibly tied to the case. Brad previously charged with family violence and unlawful restraint of Suzanne. A day later, federal charge filed against him for possessing an unlawful firearm. So he's got both state and federal charges pending. A multiple day-long search of a local landfill ended last week. Authorities came up empty-handed of any evidence connected to Suzanne's disappearance. So we're asking this morning, do you believe investigators may already have the murder weapon? Let's bring back in Dave and Noah. Dave, to you first here, please. Your thoughts?
It's possible, but now we have someone else who can rat on the bigger fish, and hopefully this will help the case. I think it's good they've got Cotter back in custody. Welcome back, Cotter. But I do think that's a break in the case. There's no body found yet, but the evidence is so damning against the husband. It's circumstantial. I mean, that you even have the feds who have come in on this weapons charge, and when the feds are after you, you know you're in trouble. So I think this is headed towards a resolution pretty quickly now that the feds are involved, now that this alleged co-conspirator is involved. Good news for the prosecution.
Right. Dave, thank you. Noah, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Dave's right. When you get the feds helping you to lodge a charge, especially a gun charge, you know that they are putting pressure on to make something crack. And now you've got 2 pressure points. You have these federal charges, and now you've got your business partner who obviously wants to stay out of being indicted for being accessory after the fact to a murder, or even a party to the crime before the fact, depending what the evidence is. So now is the time to really put that pressure on and make something happen.
We are in California this hour, where we're standing by for the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office to announce their decision about whether to allow the Menendez brothers to be resentenced.
Eric and Lyle Menendez are currently serving life in prison without the possibility of parole sentences for killing their parents, Jose and Katie Menendez. They were convicted in 1996 after a second trial.
Now, during that trial, brothers claimed that they were sexually abused by their father, and now a recently uncovered letter from Eric to his cousin in the months before the murders appears to support that claim.
That's right. Now, I also just want to mention the first trial, all of that evidence came in. In the second trial, it did not, and they were convicted in that second trial. This decision also comes in the wake of the newly released Netflix documentary about the brothers, which has renewed public interest in the case.
All right, before we bring in our guest, here's more on the Menendez brothers' trial and their recent efforts for an appeal.
I ran around and shot my mom.
Where did you shoot her?
The street store when I shot her close. I was just firing. As I went into the room, I just started firing.
In what direction?
In front of me.
What was in front of you?
My parents.
Lyle and Eric Menendez, the Beverly Hills brothers who were sentenced to life in prison for the 1989 murders of their parents, Kitty and Jose, are asking the Los Angeles County Superior Court to review new evidence discovered in their case. The brothers, who are both now in their early 50s, have never denied that they killed their parents. But they say they did it because they were acting in self-defense after years of sexual and physical abuse. During their first trial in 1993, Eric and Lyle Menendez took the stand and described the abuse they say they endured at the hands of their father.
Did you love your mom and dad?
Yes.
And on August 20th, 1989, did you and your brother kill your mother and father? What do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother ultimately winding up shooting your parents?
Me telling Lyle that,
Okay, was you telling Lyle what?
my dad had been molesting me.
Why did you kill your parents?
Because we were afraid.
Jurors also heard from Andy Cano, a cousin of the brothers, who testified that Eric Menendez swore him to secrecy and asked him if his dad ever gave him massages.
He was actually trying to find out if any of these massages were normal.
What did he say about where the massages were?
Well, he told me his father was massaging his.
He used that word?
Yes, he did.
The 1993 trial ended in a mistrial, with the jurors deadlocked and unable to come to a verdict.
The court finds that the jury is hopelessly deadlocked and declares a mistrial in this matter.
But 2 years later, they were back in court, and this time, Eric and Lyle Menendez were convicted. Now there is a renewed effort to possibly overturn their convictions or get the brothers a new trial. Attorney Mark Garagos has filed a writ of habeas corpus obtained by Court TV that details evidence that he says has never been presented before a jury. The first item is a letter written to Andy Cano from Eric Menendez about 8 months before the murders. The letter was found in Cano's papers after his death. Eric writes that Lyle wasn't going to be home for Christmas, and he was at the house alone and was trying to avoid his father. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. The letter continues. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. The second item Garagos points to in the habeas motion is a newly disclosed allegation that Jose Menendez molested a member of the boy band Menudo back in the early 80s. Jose Menendez was an executive with RCA Records, and he knew the band's manager, Edgardo Diaz. Roy Rosello was 14 years old when he joined Menudo. According to his sworn statement, he was in New York with the band when Edgar Diaz asked him to go with him to the New Jersey home of Jose Menendez. Rosello was featured in the documentary Menendez and Menudo. boys betrayed and described what he says happened.
José Menéndez me dijo, toma este vino. Después que yo me la tomé, yo me comencé a sentir un cansancio, un peso. Yo no podía reaccionar porque eso me estaba tomando cuenta de mi cuerpo. Me drogaron. Y después de eso, yo amanecí en el hotel.
Since their convictions in 1996, Lyle and Eric Menendez have filed appeals in state and federal court that have repeatedly been denied. Garagos is asking for the court to either vacate their sentences or to permit an evidentiary hearing so the brothers can offer proof concerning the allegations in this latest habeas motion.
Let's bring in our guest here in studio is crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson. Also joining us, criminal defense attorney Laura Yeretsian. Matt, let me start with you first, because this was almost 40 years ago, 1996. So 38 years ago, this conviction happened. They've been in jail since that time. Most cases like this, I would argue, go away. People forget about those individuals serving life sentences without parole. But this one, all of a sudden, has exploded. How did we even get here?
You know, I'd like to think of it as the fact that there's a resurgence in a look at this case, right? You know, this started in '89 when this first happened. There was the 2 trials brought by Court TV when we were a young network back then. And you had all of those people and eyes on the case. You had these 2 young, good-looking men from Beverly Hills, California as the defendants and wearing sweaters each and every day. And then talking about these unthinkable crimes. So now you have new generations looking at this case and the re-evaluating this trial and the evidence when you have these things like the Netflix documentary and then also the docudrama. Take a look.
Our life was one thing. And we decided we weren't going to take that anymore. Starting right now. To demand more out of life.
So, I mean, you have all of these new resurgence in the storyline. So you have new generations looking at the case. And this is what also led to the petitions and family members trying to get the release of these of the Menendez brothers, who were 18 and 21 consecutively when they were convicted in their second trial, where there was no cameras allowed and limited defense of sexual abuse.
You know what's interesting, Matt, is that a lot of people point to the O.J. Simpson trial as the beginning of this whole true crime sort of boom, but I've always said it was the Menendez brothers case because that was before O.J., one of the first trials to be televised. And I mean, it had everything, like you said, Matt. It had the rich and famous. It had really great personalities. Leslie Abramson, who was representing them in the first trial, really just an amazing attorney. And one other thing that's happened in recent years is that celebrities have sort of attached themselves or had interest in this case. Tell me about that.
Yeah, you know, you have celebrities that are producing true crime podcasts in themselves, and they're also behind the scenes of these docudramas and documentaries that we're watching, including this case in particular. There are a lot of celebrities that have been vested in this particular case, including Sunny Holston, who has talked about it on her talk show, saying that this really makes her think back to a lot of the cases that she prosecuted and whether or not sexual violence would have been a changing factor decades later. Then you have people like Kim Kardashian, who have been very outspoken after the Netflix docudrama came out. She actually visited the Menendez brothers in prison. She said, posting on her social media feed, that they should be released. And then you had, of course, Rosie O'Donnell, who has been very outspoken about this. She's been speaking on Court TV about it as well. And she said this in her podcast.
I did not know Roy and didn't know the fact that he had been raped by my father and was another victim came out through a documentary investigation they were doing on the band separately from anything related to Eric and I.
Yeah, she spoke to our Vinnie Politan on closing argument, and she said basically that she feels that it's time for them to be released. Just one of the big names that has been behind this movement to have them released, and that has led to what we might see today there in Los Angeles County.
All right, let's bring in Laura Yeretsian for some analysis as well. It's actually been almost 28 years, almost 30 years, 28 years that they've been in jail. And I think that it's a very valid argument to be made, Laura, that today's environment would treat sexual abuse allegations differently. And the environment in which that exists now, it would be a mitigating factor. I do think it's true.
And I agree with you 100%. The society as a whole is less tolerant towards sexual abuse. When it comes to sexual abuse, it doesn't take much. Look at the cases that we've been seeing recently, all the sex trafficking cases that we've seen, all the sexual assault cases, starting with the Harvey Weinstein, then moving on to P. Diddy. Now we've got also Mike Jeffries. So there's this trend of huge focus on sexual crimes, sexual abuse, sexual assaults, people abusing their position of power to molest or sexually abuse people. So the society as a whole is a lot more educated, they're more aware, more alert, and a lot more sensitive to these issues. The time is ripe for a case like this, right? Especially if it's a retrial or a resentencing, depending on what the DA's office ends up doing in this case.
You know, Laura, there's been a lot of suggestion that if this evidence was allowed in a trial, let's say a retrial, things would be different now. Maybe there would be a manslaughter conviction as opposed to murder. But what I want to put out there is this idea that I think there's even the possibility of a complete acquittal, because what we're learning about this type of abuse is the way it affects the brain, the way you look at the world. And if they truly believe, they testified to this the first go round, that their father told them if they told anyone about it, he was going to kill them. And they truly believe that he would kill them, and they acted in that way when they confronted him with this abuse. I think a jury would have been fine saying, look, we believe that you believe that your life was in danger, and it wasn't a wrong belief, which would have made it manslaughter, but we believe it might have been the right belief with all the knowledge we have now about, you know, domestic violence.
And who knows what a jury would have done, right? If this evidence had come in. We know at the first trial, it was a hung jury, which means it did impact that jury. Yes. Who knows what the next jury would have done, but unfortunately the next jury didn't really get to hear a lot of that evidence related to the sexual abuse. I mean, today we know a jury may acquit and may even nullify, even if they think it's an unreasonable belief, right? A wrong belief, they may just nullify, even though that's technically not legal, but anything could happen. In this environment of almost zero tolerance for sexual abuse, I wouldn't be surprised if they would be acquitted if this case is retried. Yeah. So I agree with you.
And just a reminder that even if the DA recommends a resentencing and them getting out of jail, the judge obviously has to be in agreement with that and has to say, yes, that's what we're going to do in this case.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I do want to remind everyone about the seriousness of this crime. Oh, gosh. I think that's gotten lost as well, so we'll talk about that. Yeah. All
right, up next, we are going to listen to testimony from the actual trial of the Menendez brothers. Stay tuned.
Tonight on Closing On.
Ashley Wilcott, we are just standing by as we're waiting word, and you're actually looking at the press room at the Los Angeles County Courthouse, where we're waiting for word from the Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon on whether they will be resentencing. Actually, we got word that they are. They're going to recommend resentencing for the Menendez brothers. We just got word from the AP judge.
That's right. No, I was just going to say that the prosecutors are going to recommend that they be resentenced after 34 years behind bars. And of course, we've talked about then that would have to go before a court, a judge would have to say, yes, okay. So let's bring in, still with us, correspondent Matt Johnson. We also have our guest attorney, Laura Yaretsian. We're going to go back into that as soon as that press conference starts. And let's just talk about the reality of how these two must be feeling, Laura. You can't even imagine. They know this is going on. This is literally their opportunity to be free, the first step in that process. Laura, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Can
you hear me? Yes, and this must be unbelievable for the two brothers. I mean, can you imagine being in custody for years, maybe having even given up hope that they would ever come out, and suddenly society as a whole understands what they've been through, and a DA, an elected official, is willing to recommend resentencing. That's huge. I can't even imagine how elated they may be, because now there's a lifeline that's been thrown their way. I know that we still need to wait and see what a judge is going to do, but a recommendation by the DA is huge, and it's going to have a very impactful impact or influence on any judge, because the judge is going to take into consideration what the defense is saying and also what the process, especially what the prosecution is going to be saying in this case.
Yeah, and in their previous press conference, George Gascon said that he's done this about 300 times, and I think only 3 or 4 people have actually went back into prison, reoffended in any way. So they've had tremendous success with this. Quickly, Laura, what do you think this judge should be considering as this petition comes in front of him with a lot of the issues that we've talked about here today? What will he be considering, or she be considering, about this case as to whether to affirm a recommendation for resentencing?
Basically everything that we've been hearing, a history of years of abuse, and that this should have been really this should have been a manslaughter, not a murder, and that had it been a manslaughter conviction, and had this trial been done in the right way, in other words, if the sexual abuse had come in, they would have been convicted of voluntary manslaughter. These two brothers would have been out by now, and these are very impactful arguments. These are very important things for a judge to take into consideration. And again, we talked about this. Justice is a dynamic thing, and I would think that the judge would think that it would be just at this point, after 30 years of being behind bars, to release or resentence two brothers who've lived through horrific days with their parents, and no one should have to go through this. And as a society, do we understand why they would have done it if they truly went through this kind of abuse? I think most people would understand it.
All right, Matt, we've talked a little bit about the family members in support of them being resentenced, but I understand there are also family members who are not in support. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, like we discussed before, not all the family members are on board with this, and they miss their loved ones, including Kitty Menendez and her brother. He's been outspoken about all of this and this process. He even lawyered up, and he wants to be in contact with the DA before making this decision, but he didn't agree with whether or not they should be resentenced or released. He wanted them to spend the rest of their time behind bars at Donovan State Prison.
And I understand part of what he said was he just wanted to be kept informed. He didn't want to hear things from the media, which I think a lot of family members can get very frustrated by.
Yeah, Laura, quickly, victims have a lot of power in the system now. How much should the court take into account that there is a family member, the sister of one of the victims, who might have questions about them being released?
The court will listen to the victims. They have a right under the law to speak up, and for the court to listen to their concerns and take that into consideration. I mean, that's part of what we go through in every single criminal case, especially if somebody's has gone through trial and we're looking at sentencing. So it's important for the court to do that. But the court also has to weigh what some of the family members who are advocating for the two brothers are saying as well. So it's a balancing act, and it involves statements by the victims' family members, and also other factors that we've discussed throughout today's show.
Yeah. So just again, a recap, this is the press conference. It was going to start around 4:30, but we know obviously it hasn't. We've been showing you the live picture. Mark Garagos representing them on the appeal. He's been going in and out. Looks like members of the district attorney's office have been going in and out. And you can see the back of Kitty's head. That's who that is, correct, Matt? With the
sister, yes.
Yes. So there she is, the sister of Kitty. All right.
And as far as the delay is concerned, it could be anything. We don't know. It was scheduled to go at 4:30. We're standing by. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll get you in there as soon as it gets going. Keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. A decision of resentencing these young men. So actually, they're not young men anymore, both either in their early 60s or late 50s. Let's go in now as they are set to begin.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin speaking, I want to also introduce some other people that are here with me, and I hope I'm pronouncing the names right because I've been handling part of it. But I have Ana Maria Barat, Jose Menendez, Jose Menendez, and Miss Karen Vandermolen, and Katie's niece. They're all here with us. Also with us here is Brock Lunsford. He's the assistant head deputy for the post-litigation conviction unit. And Nancy Cervier, who is the deputy district attorney in charge of the sentencing unit. Let me begin by telling you that this is a case where we've had many people in this office spend a great deal of time reviewing the case. I have to tell you unequivocally that we don't have a universal agreement. There are people in the office that strongly believe that the Menendez brothers should stay in prison the rest of their life, and they do not believe that they were molested. And there are people in the office that strongly believe that they should be released immediately and that they were in fact molested. I have to tell you that after a very careful review of all the arguments that were made for people on both sides of this equation, I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate, and I am going to recommend that to a court tomorrow. What that means in this particular case is that we're going to recommend to the court that the life without the possibility of parole be removed and that they will be sentenced for murder, which, because there are two murders involved, that will be 50 years to life. However, because of their age, under the law, since they were under 26 years of age at the time that these crimes occurred, they will be eligible for parole immediately. The teams that have worked on this, on the resentencing side of it, have spent literally probably hundreds of hours by now looking at this case. These cases were originally presented on the habeas side of it, which I'll explain in a moment what that is, last year, and then the request for a prosecutor-initiated resentencing occurred earlier this year. And there have been people in this office working in these cases from the very beginning, as well as many other cases that we have. The reason why I'm here today and why I came in front of all of you about 10 days ago is because there was a more recent documentary about the case that again brought a tremendous amount of public attention. And we know there have been other documentaries, so this is not the first, this is the more recent one. And frankly, our office got flooded with requests for information. And even though this case was already scheduled to be heard in late November, I decided to move this forward because, quite frankly, we did not have enough resources to handle all the requests, and one of the things that I thrive to do in this office is to be very transparent in everything that we do. In this case, we review the prison files. And you have to understand that the way the process works, when you're talking about a resentencing under the law, it really focuses not necessarily on what the original crimes were, but it focuses on, has the person been rehabilitated, number one, and number two, can they be released safely into their community? Under that rubric, since I've been in office, we have resentenced over 300 people, including 28 for murder. Only 4 have reoffended. If that was a regular recidivism rate in this country, we would be the safest nation in the world, but we know that it's not. In fact, somewhere between 40 and 50% of the people that go to prison reoffend and get rearrested. And that's why we have so many problems. However, when you look at the case of the Menendez brothers, you see 2 very young people, one was 19 and the other was 21, when they committed these horrible acts. And I want to underline, they were horrible acts. There is no excuse for murder, and I will never imply that what we're doing here is to excuse that behavior, because even if you get abused, the right path is to call the police, seek help. But I understand also how sometimes people get desperate. We often see women, for instance, that have been battered for years, and sometimes they will murder their abuser out of desperation. And I do believe that the brothers were subjected to a tremendous amount of dysfunction in the home and molestation. But they went to prison for life without the possibility of parole, which meant that certainly under the law at that time, they had no hopes of ever getting out. They could have done what many other people do, which is basically said, you know what, I'm here for the rest of my life, so I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to misbehave, I'm going to join gangs, I'm going to live the life of the prison. But they never did that. To the contrary, even though they didn't think that they would ever be left free, they engaged in a different journey. A journey of redemption and a journey of rehabilitation. And often the people that begin their journey of rehabilitation and redemption in prison is often very internal. And what they do, and one of our lawyers pointed out this today, is usually the path is people try to further their education, do things for self-improvement, which the brothers have done, by the way. But it's more unique or less usual, I guess, when people not only do that, but they also begin to engage in ways to make life for others better. And in this case, the brothers have been doing so for a very long time, creating groups to deal with how to address untreated trauma, creating groups to deal with other inmates that have physical disabilities and may be treated differently. Even in one case, Lyle negotiating for other inmates as to the conditions that they live under during prison. And all this was done by 2 young people, now they're not as young, they had no hopes of ever getting out of prison. They have been in prison for nearly 35 years. I believe that they have paid their debt to society, and the system provides a vehicle for their case to be reviewed by a parole board, and if the parole concurs with my assessment, and it will be their decision, they will be released accordingly. I must underline, however, this case will be filed in court tomorrow. The final decision will be made by the judge. Court has to agree with my conclusion that they deserve to be resentenced. It is very possible that there may be members of this office that will be present in court opposing their resentencing. And they have a right to do so. And we encourage those that disagree with us to speak, and the court is the appropriate place to do it. We certainly feel we're very sure not only that the brothers have rehabilitated and that they will be safe to be reintegrated in our society, but that they have paid their dues, not only for the crimes that they committed, but because of all the other things they have done to improve the life of so many others. So, again, we will be filing for resentencing tomorrow. We're seeking that they would be sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, as opposed to life without the possibility of parole, which is they currently have. That means that they would have 50 years to life because there were 2 murders. But because of the age upon which they were convicted, under 26, under current law, that means they're eligible for youthful parole. I think there is also important to have some introspection today, because I think that often, for cultural reasons, we don't believe victims of sexual assault, whether they're women or whether they're men. We saw in our first trial, which, by the way, they were tried twice. The first trial hung, meaning the jury could not come to a conclusion, and in fact, about half of the jury wanted to convict them of manslaughter, which, if that were have been the case, they would have been off prison a long time ago. And then there was a second trial, and then they were convicted of murder with special circumstances, which led to the life without the possibility of parole. But it's salient to understand that our own implicit and sometimes explicit bias around sexual abuse and sexual assault often leads us to severe injustices in our community. And I want to speak to those that are victims of sexual assault now, whether you're a man or a woman. Know that we're here for you. If you're a victim of sexual assault in this community, and by that we're talking about LA County, not just LA City, you can come for help. Whether you're prepared to prosecute or not, we will be here for you. We have services for you. And if you're prepared to move forward with the prosecution, we will evaluate it as we do any other case. And if we believe that the evidence is there to present a credible case in front of a jury that can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, we will proceed accordingly. You do not have to suffer alone. You don't have to keep it to yourself. And help is here unconditionally. I'm going to say a few words in Spanish because I know there's tremendous amount of interest from the Spanish media, and I know that there are going to be other speakers today, and then we're going to open it up for questions.
All right, so there you heard it. George Gascon, the district attorney for LA County, saying they are going to recommend resentencing for Eric and Lyle Menendez. The most important thing that I heard from him is that essentially they are not looking at the crime. He acknowledged the crime, which I think is important, and the heinousness of it, but they're looking strictly for resentencing at the idea of whether they have been rehabilitated and if they can be released safely into the community, both of which he thinks is yes. And also, he thinks that they were, in fact, victims of dysfunction and molestation, and they have served their debt to society.
But when you say we, the thing that stood out to me is he admits his office is split. There are people, he said, from his office, and they have a right to do this according to him, who may oppose the resentencing in court. This is unusual. This is significant. He is the district attorney, but admitting my office is split. Some think they should never get out of jail. And I want to add to that, there was public pressure because he admitted the amount of calls he got, etc. They just cannot handle. Let's bring in also Matt Johnson, still with us here on set. Matt, how do you react to what he just had to say as the district attorney recommending resentencing?
You both hit the nail on the head, and I had that written down, and I also had public pressure, journalism, and the documentary that led to him even moving up his own date of a hearing in front of a judge on this matter. And he's kind of like preconditioned it, saying we have had a team of people looking at this matter of resentencing hundreds of hours and looking at whether or not they have been reformed behind bars. But I thought that the public pressure part and him trying to say that that's under the law of transparency that he's trying to portray is the reason why he led to this emergency press conference today with this announcement.
All right, let's bring in our guest, still with us, Laura Yaretzian and also Rich Schoenstein. Rich, I'll start with you. Want to get your reaction to what we just heard out there in Los Angeles.
Michael, I sort of noted the same thing you did. He was very focused on rehabilitation, really no new mention at all of new evidence. And I wonder if his office thinks the new evidence might not be sufficient alone to merit resentencing. So he really focused on how these two have rehabilitated, have done acts of kindness, acts of good for others, have changed their lives, and can get back out into society safely. And then at the end, about how these allegations of abuse are treated more seriously now than they were back in the day, which is important, but not at all focused on the new evidence.
Laura, let's talk about a little bit of the legalities, because he did start all of this by saying, under the law, I believe resentencing is appropriate. And then he said the two questions, the rehabilitation and can they be released safely back into society. But the other thing he said is he is recommending to resentence to 2 counts of murder, not manslaughter. So I think some of the legalities that he's relying on really set the stage for the reasons for his decision.
Correct. I mean, I wasn't sure how he was going to what he was going to say as far as the counts. So now it's pretty clear what they're doing is they're basically trying to get rid of the possibility of life without possibility of parole. Now they can go, if the judge, of course, resentences them, they will have the opportunity to immediately go before a parole board and request that they be released. And we know that parole boards, as he also mentioned, the judge is going to be considering, will look at reformation. And if these people rehabilitated himself, and he kept on referring to this journey of redemption and rehabilitation and taking it a step further to the journey of actually helping others, not just themselves, right? So yes, and he was focusing on what the law allows it. Look, in this case, the DA had to make the recommendation, right? The defense can't just get the resentencing done in a case like this. They had to agree, they had to recommend it for the court to take it into consideration, or the court could have just done it itself on its own. And he's basically saying, look, I'm following the law. Yes, there was some public pressure. Yes, there were all these, the documentary and everything that was going on, but under the law, based on what we've discovered in hundreds of hours of looking into this case, we think these 2 young men at the time that this happened deserve to be released.
All right, so our understanding is that Mr. Garzón is still expressing himself in Spanish, addressing the Spanish media. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, as soon as he begins to take questions, we'll take it back out there live. So we'll take a break. Let's keep it here on Court TV, the front row seat to justice.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott.
And I'm Mike Ayala. We are continuing our breaking news coverage in the Menendez brothers murder case. The Los Angeles County District Attorney just announced Eric and Lyle Menendez should be resentenced for the murders of their parents.
That is the recommendation of the district attorney. The news conference is continuing. We want to go back in right now. Jose Menendez is speaking.
his niece. Good afternoon. My name is Ana Maria Baralt, and I'm the niece of Jose Menendez. Eric and Menendez are my cousins. I would also like to acknowledge the other family members here, some standing, some seated. Joan Vandermolen is here, Kitty's sister, as well as Diane Vandermolen Hernandez, Kitty's niece. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Today is a day filled with hope for our family. We are here because District Attorney Gascon has taken a brave and necessary step forward by recommending a resentencing for Lyle and Eric. The DA's decision reflects the truth that is hidden for so long, and I am grateful for his leadership in making this choice. We stand united in our hope and gratitude. Together, we can make sure that Eric and Lyle receive the justice they deserve and finally come home. Thank you to District Attorney George Gascon for his courage and leadership. This step gives us all hope that the truth will finally be heard and that Lyle and Eric can begin to heal from the trauma of their past. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
I believe Jose Menendez is going to say a few words.
This is the niece of Kitty Menendez,
I'm sorry.
Joan Vandermolen.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming. We are here today because District Attorney Gascon has taken a brave and compassionate step forward by recommending resentencing for my cousins, Eric and Lyle. And we wish to offer our deepest gratitude to DA Gascon. This decision is not just a legal matter. It is a recognition of the abuse my cousins endured, and we are grateful for the DA's leadership in putting justice over politics. We know this wasn't an easy decision, but is the right one. This is about truth, justice, and healing. It is time for Lyle and Eric to come home. And I ask all of you to join us in this fight for justice. We stand united in our hope and in our gratitude. Together we can make sure that Eric and Lyle receive the justice they deserve and finally come home. Thank you again to District Attorney George Gascon for his courage and leadership. This step gives us all hope that truth will finally be heard and Eric and Lyle can begin to heal from the horrors of their past. We hope this will also shed light and increase awareness and help others who have been victimized by sexual violence. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are grateful for everyone's support.
Is there anyone else speaking?
No, that's it.
Okay. Okay, and I apologize. I'm reading notes here and I'm trying to understand all the notes. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain, so you go tomorrow, you file a case for resentencing, then what happens after? Are the brothers going to be there tomorrow, and when is the role of the parole board going to come in?
Right, and you know what? I'm going to actually have the people that are handling the case walk you through all of it. The brothers will not be there tomorrow. The role of parole board comes later, but Nancy, why don't you walk everybody through?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll file our...
Say your name, ma'am, your name and your title.
My
I paused the rest of that press conference there to just to keep you guys satiated. Just a reminder, the LA County District Attorney has recommended that Eric and Lyle Menendez be resentenced for the murders of both their mother and father, Jose and Kitty Menendez. And it could also be a possibility of the two being released on parole. So just because they got the recommendation from the LA County DA doesn't mean that their fight for freedom is over and done with. So we will wait and see what happens. And if all goes well, the Menendez brothers could very well be free men after some 35 years. All right, next up, a Karen Reed update. Karen Reed is still pushing for her to get charges dropped in her murder case. Attorneys for Karen Reed filed a motion to the state's highest court on Thursday in an attempt to bolster earlier arguments that two of her charges in the death of her Boston police officer boyfriend should be dismissed. The brief was in response to one filed by prosecutors earlier this month to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, arguing against dropping the charges of second-degree murder and leaving the scene, leaving only a manslaughter charge. Reed is accused of ramming into John O'Keefe with her SUV and leaving him to die in a snowstorm in January 2022. Reed's attorneys argue she is being framed and that other law enforcement officers are responsible for O'Keefe's death. A judge declared a mistrial in June after finding that jurors couldn't reach an agreement. A retrial on the same charges is set to begin in January. My opinion on that in a little bit, but first, right back to Court TV, covering Karen Reed's fight to dismiss murder charges.
They show up wearing pink, some of them holding signs. They line the streets cheering on a woman named Karen Reed. She's not a celebrity. She's not a war hero. She's a college professor accused of murdering a Boston police officer named John O'Keefe. John and Karen were a couple who were practically living together. But on the night of January 28th, going into the early morning hours of the 29th, they were out together. First at C.F. McCarthy's in downtown Canton, Massachusetts. Then at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. And finally, inside Karen's SUV in front of Brian Albert's house, who was having an after party with a bunch of folks who were at the waterfall. The big question is, what happened to John O'Keefe after he stepped out of Karen's car? Did Karen run him over, or was he killed by someone at the party? The jury, during her trial, couldn't figure it out, so a mistrial was declared. But now some jurors have come forward saying they actually agreed Karen did not murder John, but were stuck on the second count of manslaughter. So now everyone, including the supporters, were back at the courthouse trying to figure out what happens next in the Karen Reed murder case.
I'm Benny Politan. We're back in Dedham, Massachusetts. Wow, here we go. John O'Keefe, former Boston police officer, someone killed him. Someone killed him, and here we are, still no one's been held responsible. Right? No one has been held responsible. So for John O'Keefe and his family, this is worst case scenario for them. They don't get an answer. They don't get a sense of justice. They cannot turn the page on this. Things have been tough for that family to begin with, right? There's been a lot of tragedy in that family. But someone killed John O'Keefe, and it needs to be clear to everyone who was responsible. Now, we had a trial, right? We had a trial. Over the course of 3 months, 70 witnesses. You were watching it right here with all of us. I mean, there was a lot of evidence. There was a lot of information put in front of that jury. A lot of information. And when you have a case like that where really both sides are providing information for the jury, you would think at that point, okay, things would become much, much clearer. But for this jury, they weren't. Now, they were deadlocked, but some of the jurors have come forward and basically said that they had a partial verdict here, meaning they reached a verdict on 2 of the counts, but were deadlocked on a 3rd count. That's a partial verdict. Those are legal. We've covered many of them, not hundreds of them, but many of them here on Court TV, where a jury agrees maybe on some of the counts, but on other counts, they can't come to an agreement. And those verdicts are delivered. That didn't happen here. No verdict was delivered. The jury sent a note saying they were deadlocked, sent another note saying they're deadlocked, and then the judge got them out of the courtroom and it was over, like that. So the question is, if this jury did in fact reach a verdict on count 1 and 3 and found Karen Reed not guilty of murder, not guilty of leaving the scene of the accident, and those charges are still pending against her despite there being an alleged agreement here, is this justice? And justice for John O'Keefe is the truth about who took his life. Justice for a criminal defendant in a courtroom is if 12 people agree you're not guilty, you can't be retried for that allegation. So that's what it was about in court today. And I was wondering, okay, this is post-trial. Have things calmed down? Have things simmered down in Dedham, Massachusetts? Well, the answer to that is no. Take a look.
To see them tormented this way.
Not hit by that car. Were you all trying to blame Lucky Laughlin for it? Was that the plan? If they don't leave a brother and float down in the snow and just say, oh, some guy in the snow. We're here to support her and seek justice for her freedom. And we're still gonna say, we support the folks. We are not an anti-police movement. We need our police. We just do not want the corrupt one.
Back her up as long as we must. We don't care if it takes another year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, even 5 years or more. We're going to be supporting Karen Reed. We believe she's innocent. We believe she's brave.
Internal investigation for their shoddy, corrupt work in the investigation of the death of Officer John O'Keefe. Any good police officer out there knows that if a call was made that a brother was down, they would have came running. Shame on the Canton Police Department to not call the surrounding towns to secure that scene. Shame, shame, shame.
To the side, please. Sir, get up there. You're in the way.
We support you, Karen. Thank you. You're welcome.
Karen, would you like to be back?
Give us some room, ladies and gentlemen. Give us some room.
Things have not calmed down. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson joining us live from outside that courthouse in Dedham, Massachusetts tonight. Matt, great to see you. It hasn't stopped. It hasn't calmed down at all. Tell us a little bit more about the scene outside the courthouse today.
Vinny, nice to see you, and you've been here. You've seen it yourself, and this is one of those stories where we have to share with the viewer at home that it is almost completely different when you are wrapped up in the middle of it from what you're seeing on your screen. Because what we saw today was hundreds of people in front of the courthouse, across the street from the courthouse, and down the street from the courthouse. You had a large group, probably at least 200 people dressed in pink, holding the Support Karen Reed, Free Karen Reed signs. And then across on the other end of the courthouse, you could see the John O'Keefe family supporters there in blue wearing his badge number. We did what we always do when we're at the courthouse, and we asked why they were here. Take a listen.
This is not normal. You normally do not tailgate a murder trial. It is not something that should be normalized. People should be able to let what happens in the courtroom make their decision, not a mob of people outside tailgating saying that they're having the time of their life. A man died. He's been forgotten in all of this. We're trying to refocus him.
Accept these verdicts from the jury and record them and let Karen, whatever she wants to do with the second count, do. But the 1 and 3 should be removed. Karen Reed did not kill John O'Keefe.
So today it was a motion to dismiss, but we're really back into the pretrial motion phase. So that's why, I think we just got used to that buffer zone being in place, Vinny, where the supporters of Karen Reed, or now the protesters, anti-Karen Reed protesters for that matter, would have to stay 200 feet away from the entrance of the courthouse. But there's no trial right now. There is no order. There's no jury deliberating. So they're back on the courthouse steps. And it really adds to the atmosphere here. And it's just fiery on the courthouse steps.
And they're close to each other. Obviously, there's no violence there, but a lot of passion. The number of folks showing up in blue seems to be growing. But obviously, the pink crowd still outnumbering by large numbers the number of folks who are wearing blue there. But you're right. This is different. This is different. And during the trial, they were able to move everyone away from the courthouse. But they're back there exercising their freedom, their First Amendment rights on both sides. And we celebrate that. Okay. Take us from outside the courthouse to inside the courtroom. Who was there today?
So again, last night, the media had to line up chairs. There was only 10 media could be in with a badge. Court TV was one of those 10. And it was almost like deja vu, because we were here 1 month ago when that mistrial was declared, and everybody was in their same spots. You had Karen Reed at her defense table, glued to the new member of her defense team. Behind her was her family that we saw in court each and every day, her dad, her brother, her mother. And then also on the other side, just a few feet away from her, in front of the media where we stand up at that riser, at that mini wall, is the O'Keefe family. And noticeably, they were all here, and they were waving to their supporters now that are out on the courthouse steps, and they were grateful that they were here for them.
Okay, I have a question. I don't know if you have the answer, but to me this doesn't make sense right now. There's no jury. The whole reason they're in this tiny courtroom was because the defense made a motion that they wanted all the jurors to be able to see the witnesses. There's no jury. There's no witnesses. Why don't they just go back to the large historic courtroom so members of the public can see this public case unfold? Was there any discussion of that?
There was no discussion of that and no official answer for you. But what I do know is, yeah, this was the exact same courtroom, the much smaller courtroom where the trial took place for 9 weeks. And we were imagining that, like, leading up to trial number 1, we would be in the much larger courtroom for all of the pre-trial motions or this motion to dismiss that was argued before Judge Beverly Cannoni today. But in fact, we were in the smaller room. But that also kept any of the members of the public out as well, because again, we were back to the limited space and also the limited number of the members of the media.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. Unless there's a reason to not be in the larger courtroom, you've got a super high-profile case, you've got no jury, you've got a huge courtroom that was big enough to hold the mobs from the Sacco and Vanzetti trial years ago. You can go back in there so the public can see what is happening in a public courtroom, in a public trial. Obviously, the cameras are in there, thank goodness, so the public can at least see it that way. But I'm really surprised. I'm surprised because Massachusetts, I know, is one of the good states when it comes to some level of transparency of the way the system works. So I'm just surprised by that. Okay, what arguments did we hear from the defense today?
Okay, so the defense went first, and then there was argument from Adam Lally. But for the defense, we had a new member of the defense team that was up there, and this is a seasoned veteran here in the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It was Martin Weinberg. He took the podium, the entire tiny room, got quiet, and everyone was fixated on what he had to say. This was part of his argument.
The second of the legal issues that I want to address, and they both together center on the double jeopardy clause, is unique history. It's discouraging, if not deterring, if not prohibiting, second trials when there's any rationale that would justify the verdict of the first trial, the first jury, or the continuation of the first jury's deliberations, is whether or not, now that we have evidence that the jury was not in an impasse, 4 jurors reached out to defense counsel. Jurors A, B, T, and E, I think is the way they've been described by Mr. Jackson, who received calls from 3 of the jurors, and Mr. Yannetti, who received a call from 1 juror and talked to somebody who himself or herself spoke to a 5th juror. We also have the corroboration, not just internally, where these 4 jurors are essentially saying the same thing. We reached a decision. We didn't denounce it. Some said we felt bad about it. We didn't know what to do. But they were internally consistent and not self-contradictory.
So what you couldn't see, because the camera was fixated on this defense attorney, is that Karen Reed moved her chair back and she positioned her body and she was staring at her defense attorney there, making the argument on her behalf. She was shaking her head at times, and then she would occasionally glance back over at Judge Cannoni.
Okay, so I understand what the defense wants. I mean, that's clear. How about the prosecutor, right? How about the prosecutor? So the prosecutor has a little bit of a different role in our system of justice. They're not there obligated to necessarily always go for a conviction in a case or a certain, their job is justice, whatever it is in the circumstance. Sometimes it is going for the most severe charge under all circumstances, but their ultimate obligation is the truth. So with that in mind, I was interested in how the prosecution would approach this issue and what happened today.
Well, the Commonwealth wants her retrial. They also have already set a date for January 2025. It was Adam Lally that took the podium today in making arguments, a rebuttal case of sorts, saying that there was no verdict reached. There was no objection by the defense when there was a mistrial declared. And also the jury of 12, 6 men, 6 women, they had plenty of instruction. Take a listen.
This jury was instructed. Not only instructed orally for a lengthy time, but was provided with written copies of those instructions that the court gave. That stated on at least 9 or 10 different times exactly what the unanimous verdict was and how to come to that unanimous verdict and how to report that unanimous verdict. And there is no verdict that was returned stating anything in this case. And in particular, the 2 charges that the defendant now complains of dealt with considered choice. There was a box for guilty and a box for not guilty. Neither was checked. Neither was checked. Neither was returned to the court at any point in time. There is no verdict in this case.
No verdict, and he also said that it would be inappropriate to poll the jury then or even now under Massachusetts law.
And I understand the case law in Massachusetts. Sometimes things need to change. This makes our system look really bad that no one apparently, I don't know if it's no one, but we'll see how things turn out here. But the way the law is set up, it's like the law doesn't even want to know what went on there. They don't want to know. They don't want to. It's like someone not admitting a mistake. And the mistake, I'm not saying the mistake is the judge. It's the system. It's the way we communicate with jurors, the way we send them in there without clarity, and there's not a conversation with them. They don't know. A lot of lawyers don't know some of this stuff, for goodness sake. How the heck are 12 people going to know exactly what it means to be deadlocked? What does it even mean? Do they know going in? Do we ask them if they know what it means to be deadlocked? We just give them instructions. They had instructions. Maybe the instructions aren't so good. I'm sorry, Matt, I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at our system of justice tonight. You know that. So what's going to go on here now with the judge's decision in all of this?
Okay, so the big headline after all of this argument today is that there is no decision just yet. Judge Beverly Cannoni is taking the arguments under advisement, will issue a written response at a later time. It was also very interesting, Vinny, to watch her in court today because she kind of leaned back. She must have some sort of relationship with this defense attorney that was arguing. She smiled at him quite a bit. She took a lot of notes to both sides, but she was very engaged.
Yeah, and what I understand is this lawyer has a great reputation, super smart. And I know my dad was a judge. My father loved when there were smart attorneys inside the courtroom. That's when I think he appreciated it, and he also, you got to be on your A game. You got to be on your A game, and this guy knows the law, so it's a compelling argument. But I do think it's an uphill battle for the defense in all this. All right, how about the defendant, Karen Reed? I know you will often approach her at times outside of the courthouse. Did you get to speak to her today?
I did get to speak with her today. And you know what? This case is unlike any other for a number of reasons, including this defendant is not in custody. And sometimes she does speak to the media. So, of course, I'm going to be asking questions, which I did today when she left court. Take a listen.
How have you been holding up since the mistrial?
Always strong, always. I will not be broken. They will not break me.
Your message for all the supporters out here.
Thank you as always. Thank you as always.
Thank you, as always, to her supporters, which was a growing number outside of the Dedham County Courthouse here earlier today. But then also, I thought it was really interesting how she worded that they will not break me and that I will continue fighting. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was very interesting, the verbiage here.
Absolutely. Matt Johnson, always in the middle of it. Thanks so much, Matt. Have a great weekend. When we come back, we'll bring in our Massachusetts insiders, plus coming up next hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this thing with Karen Reed, I've got to reiterate what I have said before. Before the mistrial was even considered, what should have happened is that the judge should have asked both sides, prosecution and defense, if they wanted to poll the jury on all counts. Sure, it would have taken a little step longer, but at least we would have known exactly where that jury stand on all counts in that case. And once it was made clear, then the judge should have called the mistrial. But now this case has gotten messier and messier, and it gets messier by the day. So we'll have to wait and see what happens next as far as Karen Reed is concerned. All right, let's see. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the big ones. I'm going to start light. I'm going to start this off light. First, we go to the verdict in the vet kills cop murder trial. Florida versus Joseph Abels. Here we go. All right. Here's the breakdown. A man is facing a potential death sentence after a Florida jury found him guilty of murdering a deputy whose watch ended while investigating the shooting of a pet cat. On October 22nd, Joseph Edward Abels was convicted of first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer and animal cruelty. Prosecutors say on May 6, 2018, Abels' neighbor, Susan Naylor, was painting her house when she heard a pop sound from Abels' home. Okay, good. Immediately after, Naylor noticed that her 13-year-old cat, Mr. Brown, had been struck by a bullet. She held her cat as he died before carrying him over to Abels to confront him. Prosecutors said Abels compassionately denied shooting the animal and tried to comfort his neighbor for her loss. Deputies William Gentry and Erica Lavender of the Highlands County Sheriff's Office responded to the call of a killed pet at Naylor's home. She told responding deputies that she believed Abels was the person who killed her cat. Gentry went to Abels' home to speak to him. Prosecutors said that Gentry read Abels' driver's license to the dispatchers and learned he was a felon on supervised probation. At that point, Gentry asked the dispatchers to call Abels' probation officer. Neighbors and other first responders reported to hearing gunshots. When other deputies arrived at Abels' home, they saw his vehicle in the garage and Abels standing near the open driver's door. Gentry was found unresponsive, lying inside the home's screened-in entrance. The prosecution highlighted the evidence that tied Abels to the crime, including his confession to an acquaintance shortly after the shooting, in which Abels said, quote, "I just killed somebody. It's a cop," end quote. A .22 caliber revolver was also found in Abels' vehicle, and forensic evidence connected Abels to the shooting of Naylor's cat as well. The defense argued that Abels, having perceived Gentry as an armed intruder in a dark uniform, feared for his life, in a state of mental flashback to his Vietnam experiences, reacted in self-defense. The defense contended that Abels' actions were driven by fear and a belief that he was in imminent danger, adhering to his training from his military service. Prosecutors filed a notice of intent to seek the death penalty under Florida's new laws, which changed the requirement for the sentence to a jury majority of 8-4 rather than the unanimous decision previously required. So there you have it. On October 22nd, Joseph Abels was found guilty of murdering a deputy and the shooting of a pet cat. Will he face the death penalty? I'm going to keep it locked here and let you all know. Next, we we crank things up just a little bit more. Now this one I've been following from the beginning. The toddler in the landfill murder trial, Georgia versus Leilani Simon. Don't worry, I'm gonna head back to Florida a little bit. But this one involves a child, and you all know me in cases like this. All right. I will set this up as best I can without spoiling everything, because I want you all to hear the verdict, and I want you to see Leilani Simon's reaction. On October 5th, 2022, Leilani Simon called the police to report her son Quentin Simon was missing. She told a 911 dispatcher that their front door was open and Quentin must have been abducted. For weeks, investigators searched for the boy. His remains were discovered November 18. Prosecutors argued Leilani killed Quentin on the morning of October 5th by assaulting him with an unknown object before leaving his body in a dumpster outside of a trailer park near her home. In the days and weeks after reporting her son's disappearance, Leilani gave a number of interviews to the police and the FBI, which her attorneys have fought to keep from being entered into evidence at trial. So we are about to go right into the courtroom. Leilani Simon is going to hear her fate.
Let the record reflect that counsel for both parties are present. Ms. Simon is present with her counsel. I have received a note, and it says we have reached a verdict. And Mr. Bryant, if you would mark this as a court's exhibit as well. I believe we're up to 7.
Yes.
Okay, and if the parties wish to see this note, you're welcome.
I don't wish to.
Okay, then I'll hand this back down, Miss Blake. Okay, so. And you may, if you would, please call in the jury. Thank you.
Jurors entering. Jury room is clear, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Deputy Smith. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you may have a seat. Thank you very much. And I understand that you have received a verdict. I just want to say, first of all, to those who are in the audience, there has been a jury verdict reached. To everyone in attendance, and many of you have been here for quite some time, I will ask that there not be any emotional reactions and no disruptive outbursts. So at this point, I am going to ask the foreperson to please stand. Juror 5. And have you reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
Was it unanimous?
Yes, it was.
Has the verdict been filed in or filled in and signed and dated by you?
Yes, it has.
And if you would please hand the verdict to Deputy Solomon. Thank you, Deputy Solomon, for handing that up. I'm going to ask counsel to approach and take a look at the verdict form. As to the verdict, it reads as follows. We, the jury, find as follows: malice murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 4, concealing the death of another. We find the defendant guilty. Count 5, false report of a crime. We find the defendant guilty. Count 6, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 7, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 8, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 9, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 10, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 11, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 12, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 13, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 14, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 15, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 16, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 17, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 18, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. And count 19, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Okay. And is there anything further from the state? From the defense?
Your Honor, we ask Paul.
Certainly. So, members of the jury, this is something that very often happens. You will be asked questions by the clerk, 3 questions in particular, I believe, and simply answer the questions. Madam Clerk.
Juror number 1, was this your verdict then? Yes. Is this your verdict now? Yes. Juror number 2. Juror number 2. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 3. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 4. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 5. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 6. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 7. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 8. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 9. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 10.
Was that your verdict then?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes, ma'am.
Juror number 11.
Yes.
Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 12. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Anything further at this time with the juries?
No, Your Honor.
With the jurors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service, for your time, for your energy. This has been an important more than 2 weeks now that you've spent with the court, and your time and attention is deeply appreciated. I am going to release you. If anyone wants to speak with you about your deliberations and you want to, you may do so now. You're being released from the instructions. You're not under any obligation to speak with anyone about your experience, but you may do so if you choose to. I am ordering that there be no contact with the jurors in the courthouse or on the courthouse property. But I do release you at this point. Thank you. You're free to go.
Jurors exiting.
So Leilani Simon has been found guilty of felony murder, guilty of malice murder, guilty of concealing the death of another, and 14 times over guilty for making false statements to police. Now, as the verdict was being read, I thought, nah, this woman is not going to show any kind of emotion. And to a degree, I was right. I want you guys to take a look at this before I move onward. This is Leilani Simon after being found guilty.
So we are back on the record in SPCR 22-03364J6, the state of Georgia versus.
I stopped right there. You saw the tears she was wiping away, right? Let me tell you right now, those tears that she was wiping away were not for her son Quentin. Nope. Those tears were for herself because she got busted. She got busted lying. And now a 12-member jury has put her on blast and said, yeah, you should be held responsible for the death of your son Quentin. And hey, who's gonna tell them wrong, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now we come to the biggest of the evening. This is the verdict in the suitcase murder, Florida versus Sarah Boone. Now I know we've had our share of ups and downs with this case, but we're gonna get it settled right here, right now.
being taken into custody formally as a convicted killer. However, she's been in custody for 4 years already, so this is not necessarily anything new for Sarah Boone. But once the conviction goes down in Florida, we see this all the time. Inside the courtroom, they take him into custody, and many times they will take their finger. All right, folks, they're bringing in the jury. Sarah Boone, who has waited 4 years for this moment, has attempted to litigate things on her own, went through 8 different attorneys. Now is Judgment Day. Now, in just a few moments, she will find out what the rest of her life will be. Will she have an opportunity to walk out of that courtroom tonight? Or will she be locked up for the rest of her life? Second-degree murder, manslaughter, culpable negligence, all on the table for this jury.
State, do you recognize our jury?
Which reached a verdict in less than an hour and a half. Let's listen in.
Members of the jury, you may be seated. Thank you. Members of our jury, good evening. I understand that you've come to a verdict in this case.
Yes.
If you could please hand the verdict form to the deputy, please. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, if you could please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the Ninth Judicial Circuit in Orange County, Florida, case number 2020 CF 2603, the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone. Verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the second degree as charged in the information. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 25th day of October 2024. The form has been signed by the foreperson.
Madam Clerk, please poll our jury.
Juror seat number 1, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror seat number 2, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror seat number 3, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror seat number 4, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror seat number 5, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror seat number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Members of our jury, again, I want to thank you for your time, your sacrifice, and your attention in this matter. I know that we spent almost 2 weeks together, and it was not taken lightly, and I really appreciate the time and the effort and the sacrifice that you put into this case. I want to advise you now of your final instruction. Members, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and your consideration in this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are at liberty to speak to anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with you, from the media, from the attorneys, or elsewhere. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. With that, members of the jury, again, I thank you for your service. I'm going to ask you return to the deliberation room. I'll be back there shortly with your jury certificates, and thank you.
Go ahead.
After 4 years, 9 total attorneys, and a jury deliberation that lasted less than an hour and a half, Sarah Boone has been found guilty of second-degree murder in the death of George Torres. What? You dropped it, honey? Oh, I hate that for you.
I'm gonna drop it. I put my hand on it, and I guess it broke.
Sorry about that, guys. My wife's tablet. She slipped and the screen is a little busted. That's it. But anyway, back to Sarah Boone. Her sentencing will come on December 2nd, I believe. Let me look at her. Let me look at her case, and I can tell you. Hang on, guys. This is the this verdict broke late Friday. Yes, her sentencing is set for December 2nd. Oh boy, oh boy. When you think you're the smartest person in the room, something like this happens. Let me run that back one more time, just in case Sarah Boone herself didn't get the full effect of it. She has been behind bars 4 years already. She's went through 9 different attorneys and spent a total of, 10 days? No, according to this, 6 days. 6 days on trial for the second-degree murder of her boyfriend at the time, George Torres, and the jury came back with a guilty verdict. Stick a fork in Sarah Boone. She is done. And speaking of done, it's time for me to read last rites on Cadell Piedrahita. When the Reaper calls your name, there is no apology. When the Reaper calls your name, there is no remorse. When the Reaper calls your name, it's just over. Cadell Piedrahita, I got some bad news for you, buddy. The hounds of hell are baying for your very soul. And the gates of hell are opening and welcoming you to your eternal damnation. Cadell Piedrahita, your name has been called. And when the weight of your guilt weighs heavy upon you, you will never rest in peace. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. I said I was going to start it early because I had time for Leilani Simon and I had time for Sarah Boone. So if you liked everything you caught today and you want to get in contact with me, I'm on Facebook at BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. I'm on X at EKB316. That's in all caps. Make sure you know the difference. All caps, not lowercase. That's for the Instagram. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm here on YouTube at BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. As I just mentioned a second ago, I'm on Instagram at EKB316. That's in all lowercase. I'm on TikTok at King of Hearts 316 2021. And you can email me. The address is kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for dropping by the drama-free true crime destination. This is your home for true crime news without the drama, where your opinions matter, where lively debates are encouraged, where your voice is heard, and above all else, justice served. Ladies and gentlemen, this is BETHEA'S BYTE, and it's reloaded. Thank you all so much for joining me here. I look forward to doing this again with you next time, same place. And until then, you all know what to do from here. Bye. Thanks for watching and joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment on this video. Also, be sure to follow BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded all over social media. This is BETHEA'S BYTE, and it's reloaded.